resources, although it can be very strict when it comes to what they can offer, what they can provide due to, ethical reasons such as like age. The underage issue was a big like issue. That's where I started, like getting those resources from there and then running out into getting other resources. And once it's pretty simple as far as like networking. Once you reach one resource, like one of my very first was Montrose Grace Place. I still go there to this day, and every time there's different people, and you get to connect with more and more people who can help you.
Awesome. Tiara?
I would like to say from my experience, I didn't really find out about any other resources till I was almost aged out from the resources. So I was basically like I'll say probably once I got on the Yab, that's when most of like the resources start to come available. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let me try to see if I can get some. And once I told them my age, they was like, oh, well, you're kind of aging out, so we'll have to like put you with the adults. And that was a longer wait list and stuff like that.
I didn't really you like know any options from that I help the young youth adults because I was well off. I was doing okay at first because it was really COVID what happened for what had happened for me. When COVID happened, I didn't know like what I was gonna do after that. So what helped me, the first option I seen was really the workforce. They'll like it's not all that, but they'll really help you. Like they'll help you build your resume and look for you a nice job if they can. And another place is like going into the end of what happened for me is Bread of Life. They helped me too. They gave me a oh excuse me. Hold on. They got me a hotel voucher and they helped me get some resources too.
That's awesome. I think, like, from the perspective of agencies, before we had YHDP, the very, very limited resources that we all have were stretched so thin um, that it's difficult to really do much. So I think that's been good. Um, I also kind of want to talk a little bit about the fact that we have we originally the system here is kind of created for an adult chronic homeless population. So youth and young adults are way more likely to be couch surfing. One thing we find, we take information about everybody that comes into Grace Place and just trying to find out, like, where'd you sleep last night? Over 30% of the youth that walk into our doors stayed with a friend the night before, or they're going from place to place. And the way that our system here worked before YHDP was that you had to literally be homeless. You had to be seen on the street. And I also want to make sure that word seen is understood. Youth, specifically youth, young adults as well, but young people who are 18 and under, when they're on the street, what they're staying in is an abando or a vaco, abandoned building, a vacant place. Nobody can see them except each other. And they can't sign off on that. And they don't want people to know they're staying there because they don't want to enter a system like CPS or anything like that, which, 25% of youth in foster care, when they turn 18, they will become homeless before they're 20. So I think there are all of these various things in place. And so youth and young adults were not given the opportunity to even enter rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing because they couldn't even prove that they were homeless. And on top of that, they probably don't have an ID or anything like that. And so I feel like with a system that was designed to address chronic adult homelessness, so many young people were falling through the cracks. And that's something that we saw at Grace Place. And that kind of leads me into the discussion about diversion. Diversion seeks to intercept an individual before they experience literal homelessness, but after they've been evicted or kicked out or lost their housing, to quickly get them back into a housing situation. And this is a really big blessing for Grace Place because that allows us to serve youth who are couch surfing. So, Ashani, would you like to speak to the diversion conversation at all?
Um, the diversion program, they provide you with rental assistance for 3 to 6 months, and they'll help you pay your utilities or your application fee. But for me, when I joined the diversion program, I was literally homeless. So it does. I don't know how you can prove you're on the street. Like, so it's like, and like, I guess, I don't know. I guess they knew I was homeless or something, but that's it. I don't know.
What YHDP allows us to do is take Ashani's word that she is living in a place not meant for habitation, so you don't have to provide all of that extra proof. So that's something that's really great that YHDP has done for our system. One of the things I think that diversion provides is intensive case management. Youth and young adults a lot of times need someone to just hold your hand and like walk you through every single step of the process. And that's like we have a diversion case manager at Grace Place, Rebecca, and that's she only has 15 clients, but they talk all the time. Every day, you can text Rebecca whenever. She will go to the apartment office with you. She will go with you to do whatever is needed. And so I think that like intensive case management, that hand holding, learning, how do you sign a lease? What does my lease say? Those are all really important. Do you want to?
Oh, yeah. So now that we talked about the past
Oh, no,
before.
I haven't. I'm sorry. I didn't.
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah. So the barriers. Okay, yeah. So for the barriers, yeah, it's basically more like that literal homeless, like they have to see you for some reason, and it's just like, how can I prove that if I'm couch surfing? Because I'm professional. I was a professional couch surfer. Every day, like every other month, I was at somebody else's house. So when it was like, yeah, we need to see that, and I'm like, what you want me like to take a picture by the couch or like what do you want? Like I didn't know for real. So it was just that was probably my hardest barrier, was just trying to prove to them, like, because I personally, I know I can't sleep outside. I'm not that type of girl. I knew I wasn't going to do that, so had to find somewhere else to sleep. But just trying to prove that I was homeless, it was just kind of hard for me. But and then also, since once I learned about most of the services, I was turning 26 that year, so it was just, what can you, that's my problem. It's just like, I feel like young adults, the age limit is weird for me, because I'm 26 now, and I still feel like I'm a young adult. So why should some, people that are 26 and still experience homelessness, like, why should we be considered adults? We still in our 20s, so they still consider 20, like in your 20s, that's a young adult. So I feel like those are the barriers for me.
And we also see a lot of barriers with LGBTQ plus youth, but also youth that have intersectional identities, youth and young adults who are members of the LGBTQ community, but specifically are also Black and Brown youth. There are less services, there are less safe places to exist. The danger is a lot heightened at night, especially. So these are barriers that YHDP has really worked to address. At Grace Place, we're in the heart of Montrose. We have an outreach presence at all of the local bars because that's just traditionally a safe third place for the community. And so having kind of a broader presence in the community has really been helpful. Before we move on, I just want to ask everyone on the panel, If someone asked you, why do we need to have dedicated services for youth and young adults experiencing homelessness outside of what we already have for adults, what would y'all say? And we'll start with T.
I would say because we are the future. So, I mean, this is going to be our world in like a couple of more years, probably even now, if you want to be honest. We got TikTok, Facebook, all this, maybe. But yeah, like I don't be on TikTok 'cause it's too much. But yeah, yeah, I really can't. But we're the future. We're doing this for us. Like, why stop? Stop it now before it gets to the point where everyone is adults and more and more. It's just stop it now. Like, that's what we need to stop it is at the heart, like right now, especially at this time of us growing. Like, we are young adults. This is the time when we're learning to be adults, learning to live life, pay bills and stuff like that. So stop it now before it gets to the point where some of us may be in debt.
Mm-hmm. Danielle.
I would say because I see a lot that this generation, we are breaking curses, generational curses, and we're doing that without the education and the skills that people that we're coming from already have. So all these resources and things they- that are available to us has like needs to be evolved so that all these certain barriers that are in place, everybody doesn't feel like, oh, I'm being left out when I also need help too. So that's very crucial.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, um, like just what y'all was saying. I didn't know what application fees was. I didn't know what deposit was. A deposit was. I didn't know what a. I had to sign a lease. I didn't know any of that. So it's really hard, especially with COVID, because that really messed me up, to be honest. So especially the challenges that came with COVID for me, like going into the world, I didn't know anything, and I'm still learning my way. So with the services, the Monstro Center is helping me with most things, getting my TWIC card, getting anything that I need to get to.
Maybe just you. Maybe just leave it like right here the whole time.
Anything I need to get further in life so I can succeed on my own. So.
Thank y'all. I'm gonna pass it back to Tiara.
Alrighty now, so now we're gonna talk about YHDP and how does it work. So basically, you'll have outreach. They will probably go out to see, or any how just to get a homeless youth, and they'll just have to do an assessment, and then after the assessment, they'll just based on what like the prioritization, like how I can't really explain. I'm like losing my train of thought, but it's basically based on just how the referral is. They'll go to the different programs, and then afterwards they'll have a someone from like a navigation, or like just helping them, which is basically like a peer support, or like the employment and education case manager. That's basically the navigation part. So they'll be helping them while either they go through like the housing programs, which is like diversion, transitional, and permanent. So we'll be there to like help them while they're waiting for housing. And then now I'm going to talk about the U Action Board, which is basically a group. I like to say it's a group, like a family, because that's what the YAB was for me. I have friends now that I would never thought in a million years that I'll be friends with, but they're my family now. So basically, that YAB group is to help the youth that are homeless or have lived experience, help them to have a seat at the table, because like I said, we're the generation, we're the future. So we're helping. Why not have a seat at the table to let them know, like, this not working for us. We need something different. So, like, now that I'm a OG YAB member, um, I'm talking and basically, like, these girls right here, how they can get up here and talk about the panel. So, talk on the panel. But what do you guys think about what's the YAB for you guys?
The Yab is a saving grace for me and everybody. I can speak for everyone because, the Yab is giving you like pretty much everything that you wish you had before transitioning into stability. If the Yab, if we were able to like be on the Yab, then um life would be so different. The support, the resources, like we went shopping the other day and we were talking about, imagine like what what our group of Yab now would have been like if we were back then. Like if we in there, like things would have been like resolved so much easier. We wouldn't have had so much of the struggles because everything that, not everything, but along the way we are discovering things more with the Yab that we wish we had that kind of support. Even just like, hey, I know where we can help you look for a job. And that's what they always tell us. They're like, hey, we're going to do resume cleanups. We're going to do this. We're going to reach out to people. All these people have, they network for us to be like, hey, I know somebody who can help you. We're going to partner with them so they can help you. We're going to do this for you. And like, how amazing it is to hear that when you didn't get that kind of support, when you like, when, or I could speak for myself to say when I was unstable. So it is really amazing to be on the flip side and to be the one to go to do things like this, to speak on behalf of people because I know how it feels. And so like in later generations, knowing that people, even if you're not like not homeless, even if you are homeless, you could still be able to speak up on behalf of people and get that support.
Um, the Youth Action Board, the YHDP partnered with young adults so we can create new projects and be there in every step of the community. Like whatever they doing in the community, we can be there on every step of the way. But YHDP, it's an open space for me. I'm really glad I'm on the app because right now we're creating a housing guide. Right now we're creating a housing guide, and it's just something amazing to create because like a girl, me could go in a library and I could pick up this brochure or pamphlet that we made and I can get any of the resources I need and I can sign up for anything that I need right now or I can get something that I need right now. So I'm glad that we're really working on something monumental that's gonna like be something like it's gonna be so much bigger in the future. So it's good to work on.
I love that.
Alrighty. What was it? Okay. In what ways has YHDP addressed or is addressing the barriers or issues surrounding youth, young, and young adult homelessness?
So I would say a certain barrier that was chronic for me and was being underage. And as we stated, the age gap of youth and young adults is between 13 to 25, correct? Um, so imagine me, 15, 16, 17, on the streets, not knowing what to do. Literally, I left with just a seed of faith and not knowing that, there are still like laws and stipulations involved to where you're not able to exactly get the certain necessities that you may need. Like, I was always scared that, hey, if I go to Grace Place or if I go, like, literally Grace Place was my saving grace. Like, because it's open. I think Grace Place is one of the most like, there's no barrier stipulations. It's always like, oh, you can only do it if you're pregnant. You can only do it if, you've been through domestic violence, which is very crucial. But it's like, hey, if I'm just homeless, even if I am above the age limit, or if I'm like, what if I'm not pregnant? What if I didn't grow up in the system? Like me, I went through the system, but I didn't get aged out, but I still ended up on the streets. So where does it end there? It's so specified, and that's what, I guess, like, what makes it so hard. Because like, I understand like there are certain crucial, but like, why can't it be open to everyone? And I know, like, in past generations, when it was open, like some things have gotten ruined, but I'm pretty sure if people know they really need the help, having that open space to be like, hey, like I know I can feel comfortable here because it's not specified to only this specific group of people or this specific group of people, or I know that I could feel safe knowing that, there's everybody else with, my kind of, struggle going on. I can come here to get those resources. So, yeah.
Thanks, Danielle. I think that that actually makes me think about how YHDB has addressed a barrier, which is that, yeah, like at Grace Place, we have so many people that just find out about us from each other or whatever, that we were kind of doing this like diversion, but without any financial resources. So just trying to assist people with the limited budget that we had um, was an issue. And especially, I think that diversion piece. It introduced the diversion plus, which allows like places like the Montrose Center to provide the rental assistance, but also just programs that are targeted directly to young people, transitional housing that bridges into your own apartment, and things like that. So thank you for that, Danielle.
Oh, I would like to also add, now that we have peer support, because I'm a peer support specialist, so I'm more of, I say I'm the bridge between the client and the case manager. So some things they don't get along with. So I'll come in and I'll be like, hey, let me put it into simpler words for you, So or it's like if they're having a bad day, I'll tell them you can call and talk to me. I'm a listening ear. I have lived experience, so I may not gone through what you personally been through, but I've been in something similar. So I can give you advice, and I always tell them you can take my advice or not, but it's just there as an option. But I love that we have the peer support because I've personally seen that it's been helping the clients that I've been working with my peer supports, my peer support skills. And now I'm going to ask, what were your personal journey through the YHDP process?
So, turning 18, because like I said, I had the issue with being underage, most of my experience with being homeless. So, turning 18, Grace Place again, like I said, I can always speak on that because that's one of the only places that I was able to obtain their support. Like just like Ashani was talking about hotel vouchers, they gave me a hotel voucher, which was my saving grace. Like between me turning 18, like I woke up on the streets that day, and like they were like, "Hey, we can give this to you, to help you." And between then and a few weeks later, I was able to obtain transitional housing up until me getting my own apartment through like other programs that have helped with like people who are going through foster care and things like that, which they have, which I'm really happy about because they are kind of falling back on those certain stipulations that I was talking about. Where, oh, you have to age out, or you have to do this, you have to do that. So, like, and that it has been more of a blessing to me to be able to obtain those resources like in the perfect timing that it was.
Oh, mine was, I feel like my journey was a smooth sailing. Like, it went by really quick for me, I feel. Because it happened, the YHD contacted me back in, well, the Monstro Center, my bad. The Monstro Center contacted me back in September. So the only journey I really went on is having to figure out, like, I have to do everything on my own. And I told you I didn't know nothing about that. And I would say, like, the Monstro Center, they helped me. Evan, he helped me find jobs and everything. Jen helped me get my TWIC card, and now we're working on my driver's license. And Tiana is my peer specialist. So, so like, they helped me a lot, but going through the journey of finding your own apartment is, especially your first time, is really crazy. And I didn't know nothing, so that was my only journey, really.
I would like to say that like knowing like even just like not even on a professional level, like Grace Place is not even just like, oh, let me go and get resources. Like, it's an open community. Like, I don't go out. I don't, I don't. I'm a good social person, but Grace Place is my social space. That's where I like to hang out, just to be there, you know, just to have that safe place to be at. And that's also that's one that's one big thing that I did have. And even like I said, now I am stable, I'm housed, like I'm still going. I'm not like, hey, I'm no longer homeless. I don't have to be here no more. Like, no, like that's was always a big plus for my journey. So I'm gonna keep at it because that's what works for me, and that's been a big support for me.
Danielle, thank you so much. Danielle also brings people that she thinks could use our services. So it's like bringing other people in to get resources. I want everybody to know how amazing you are.
How are we working with different organizations and entities outside of the traditional homeless services to identify and serve unhoused youth? I would like to say, basically, we use collaborations. We'll go to other organizations, give them a rundown of like the program and stuff, and see if they have clients. 9 times out of 10, whoever they're helping, they qualify for YHDP because basically, it's no barriers. So we just network, have meetings, start just as soon as we have the meeting. I think right afterwards we start collaborating as soon as possible.
Yeah. Danielle mentioned really early about how school was always like a place for her. I've had this like thought, when it comes to youth homelessness, it's like really an all hands on deck approach. It isn't just other homeless service providers, it isn't even just us and the foster care system working together. It's about the teacher at your school who maybe knows about what stuff is going on with you. It's about your best friend's parents who let you come and stay with them when you got kicked out. So if as met partnering and collaborating with everybody from like P Flag to Open Gate with David, like making sure that we have this huge big tent of resources because you never know where a youth or young adult is going to present as experiencing homelessness. They could show up at your drop in center. They could never do that because they are a trans youth of color who really feels more comfortable at the normal anomaly or something. That's a partner of ours that I love to sing the praises of at all times. And they'll call and say, we've got somebody in the center today, or somebody that we met while we were doing a presentation at a school, and what should we do? So it's about making sure that everybody in the community knows about A, the problem, and B, where are the solutions?
One thing, like I'm very resourceful, and that's because of the experience I gained from being homeless. And one thing I do not ever hesitate to do is speak on it. Like I always like kind of like I was telling Miss Courtney, like I'm always bringing new people. Like if I know it will help you, I'll be like, hey, Grace Place helps. Hey, Bread of Life helps. Hey, this is what you need. Need your driver's license? Go to Vote Riders. I would definitely tell you because those are the things that like word of mouth is very strong. So if I can be a testimony to be like, hey, this worked for me. You should go here. You know how many people that would come to be like, hey, somebody told me that this is, a good, like, this is something good that's gonna, like, we can do. Can y'all help me or something like that? So that's why, word of mouth is also very strong for people who do know and people who are coming up and using the resources that they did have. Speaking on that to people who you know you can help is a big thing too.
Alrighty. What impact has YHDP had on the youth, and has YHDP opened doors to youth and young adult that were not there originally? I personally feel like yes. Um, it's some people they'll come and they will never know about like we can help them get a TWIC card because a TWIC card is expensive.
What's a TWIC card?
So basically, it's like a another verification to like go work on like ship channels, I think it also can help you, like if you're going through the airport, you don't have to go to TSA and like get all that. Yeah, you just show the card and they be like, all right. So, but yeah, it's just another way for like to another certification to just work on like offshores and things like that.
I would say, like, I was taking on somebody the other day, and I was like, "Yeah, go to this place. They help you get a job. They help you with job training." And again, these are, and a lot of the things I appreciate about it is these is things that is now being lacked in in a family household. This is not something that of course you're not learning this kind of stuff in school. Um, so it's not being taught in the household either. So going to all the organizations that YHDP works with is that support to be like, hey, we offer like Bread of Life offering education services. I'm getting my certification in social health in there, like there, and for free at that, with education being expensive and things like that. Like all the simple things that life has to offer that we can't necessarily get right off the back of our hands. Like, there's support for that.
I think doing this, well, yes, I think doing this is opening doors for us. Like, I ain't never spoke in front of this many people before. I didn't, it's just like all the opportunities they have to offer for us now because back then it was very different. So I'm just grateful for everything they let us and we can do now.
Yeah, youth voice has been so important in the process. Like, I can't emphasize enough how much youth voice has been critical from like start to finish. When we first got asked, oh, hey, you want to participate in these meetings? And we're going to start talking about like what option, like, remember that in like 20, whatever. And we couldn't even like start the meeting without like members present. So I feel like that's really important. Like we're not even having a single conversation. Yeah. Did you want to add anything else before we move on to the
Oh
future?
yeah, I was just gonna piggyback off you what you said, cause yeah, when I joined the YAB, I was nervous. I would never speak in front of anybody. I like to be in the background, but for some reason they kept pushing us to like, no, speak up. This is for you. This is for you. So once I started to speak up and then all these opportunities came, like even now, like I said, when I started this, I was not expecting me to have a job at the Montrose Center. I was used to working at grocery stores. So now that I'm in social work and I'm seeing like this is something I feel like this is my calling, like this is something that I've been wanting to do for the longest, and it really fulfills me every day to know that I'm helping someone that literally went through something similar to me, and I'm just there to now when they be like, oh, look back at their life, this person helped me and that person is me.
That's awesome.
Like, I'm going to school for psychology. Once I finish, I'm going to get my master's in social work. And literally,
We
they
need interns, so
yes, and like literally what the YAB is, how hard it is to get jobs and things like that. The YAB, and they're like, oh, you need experience, you need experience, but of course you got to start somewhere. And like for me, this is me starting somewhere.
Okay, so we're gonna finish up the conversation with kind of like what are our goals for the future, right? Like we're a year in, and so we're still working on some things. Danielle mentioned minors. That's a huge gap. I think there is, well, I think someone who is 16 or 17 is in a position, if they find themselves unhoused, that's really dire. Because if you call CPS, they're going to say, oh, that's a 16 or 17-year-old. We don't even have room for them. So they're not going to do anything. Meanwhile, you can't do anything because they're not 18. And you put everybody, it puts everybody in a position for youth who are 16 and 17 to be at extreme vulnerability, to have to rely on survival sex, to have to survive not knowing, like, where am I going to sleep tomorrow, or literally be on the street sleeping in a closet at Cherryhurst Park. Like, it puts young people at a major risk. So I think I would love to see us really tackle that minor solution. What are some things that y'all would like to see us continue to do to reduce youth and young adult homelessness in the future?
I would probably say, um, yo- young boys and girls who are in like the juvenile system and they're in and out of the juvenile system because it really is hard for them and they have the biggest challenges of all. So like probably more than working with the workforce. No, never mind. More than working with like to get them tiny jobs because they deserve more too. If you get what I'm saying.
Definitely.
I would say, again, I like picking people's brains. So I always think about a bigger picture. And of course, yeah, you got to get a job. Yeah, you got to get educated. Yeah, you got to, pay your bills. But a lot of what also is a big issue when youth are lacking this is mental health support, mental and physical health support. And so that is a big thing also. And shout out to Open Gate Ministries because that's where, like, they have doctors. There's places that, they have doctor free healthcare, and the government is not giving. It's not giving when it comes to Medicaid and all that kind of stuff. Uh, so yeah, that's a very big thing. Counseling, things like that will help people. Like at my apartment, they are offering free counseling. Definitely, I've been taking advantage of it. So, and that helps get people motivated because you can't be able to work or you can't be able to study in class if you're going 100 miles an hour up here in your head. You can't do it. So that's a big thing I would like really love to see.
I would say I want for us to start going into schools, high schools, colleges, especially college, because that's when I really experienced my homelessness. Yeah, because paying for school and just going to school and then suddenly life hits you is crazy. Like the just immediate things just happen. So I really want us to like start going to where the youth and young adults may be at, which is high school and college. So yeah, just making sure that we getting the word out so we can start helping as many as we can.
I think also funding is like a huge one. We at Grace Place can't really rely on just the money that comes from HUD for our diversion program because we have a really ambitious goal to start a guaranteed income pilot program with our diversion clients by the end of the year. And that's not something that HUD would fund, but there are so many studies out there that show that even young people, when given like no strings attached cash assistance, use that for like necessities. And so that's something that we find to be really important at Grace Place, and that's something we're working toward. But I know that every organization in YHDP, there are gaps. What your funding won't cover, and so I think just increasing that is really important for the future. You got this?
Yeah. Okay, so what's one thing people don't understand or have a misconception about youth and young adult homelessness?
I would say that they think that, how should I put this? They think that we are not equipped, I would say, for reality. But that also comes with a benefactor of not having, the stable household or the stable, life to understand that. And some people are even going without it, like me, I went on the streets knowing nothing. So over time, I had to educate myself, and look at me more than ever to say that, hey, I could speak for a lot of people who are like stable, who have been stable, to be like, hey, I am a dedicated person. I am like, I think that's one thing that being homeless did, was humble me to be devoted and to be, to be like educated and, strong about the things that I want to do for myself, and not be like, they automatically would think that like we're lazy. The reason why we're homeless is because, we don't want to do nothing. We don't want to work for ourselves. But I think this generation is doing pretty well about doing things on our own and not having to piggyback off of anybody.
I would like to say, like, for like the youth, that they're maybe they just running away because they're defiant. You don't know what they got going on. Like, so, just, or like they just don't know what they want to do, so they just out here, they just floating around, like not knowing what they wanted to do with their lives. It's a lot of things, like stuff happens, real life happens. So yeah.
I would say, yeah, I'm really being misunderstood. That is a big part, especially for people who are battling mental problems. And another thing, I didn't know people knew about, it's young homeless people. Not like that was something I didn't know about, and I was a young homeless person. So I think not knowing or not paying attention.
Just from the perspective of like me, two major misconceptions that I think people have. The first is that youth and young adults experiencing homelessness are not working and don't have jobs. That is so far from the truth. The problem is that the jobs that they are given, the opportunities they're provided, pay nothing, and they can't afford to get apartments. And so I think that's a huge one, is that people aren't working. And then the second one is the sheer number, kind of touching on what Ashani said. The sheer number of young people under 25 or 25 and under who are out here experiencing homelessness. It's so much higher than we think.
I would say that one thing, like kind of piggybacking off of like what you said about um like the job thing, and it's like, reality, in reality life is hard. Like it's not easy now to like get jobs like they say it is. Like even if you get your diploma, even if you have a bachelor's degree, like it's not easy. So, and they automatically assume, hey, you're not looking for jobs. You're not, like, I could, if I had $1 for every time I apply for a job and never heard back, I would be rich. I promise you. So, that's a big misconception that people, do not understand, that, right, the job market is not really, it's not, not to say it's not giving, but
It's not
It's not
giving.
giving.
It's
It's not
not.
it's
giving.
not
It isn't
giving.
It's not
giving.
giving at all.
But it's not as promising as they say it is. Of course, you say we're hiring, but when I do apply, where's the promise that I would get hired on the spot? So it's like I am working hard, but there's only so much I can do if nobody's willing to meet me halfway.
For real, and working a job where you you're making $10 an hour, but only working 3 hours, and then your commute. If you're on a bus, that's an hour bus drive. Like I'm not. It's just too much. And then you come,
And that's if you're
and,
lucky. It's an hour.
and then like finding like applying for apartments, finding out they're telling you got to make 2 times the rent, 3 times the rent. I didn't know what that was. I'm like, and then I asked Tiana, I said, do you think in reality, do you think if I apply for an apartment, I can find I mean I can get up if with my job, do you think I can get an apartment? Excuse me. And she was like, no. And it really broke my heart because I'm really committed to this job, going here, putting my all in. And I can't even get an apartment. Just
And like one last thing, a harsh thing, like for me, was doing work and school at the same time. And that was, I was literally, I was doing dual credit when I was in high school. So keep in mind, I was 17, where I was at HCC and at Channelview High School and working at McDonald's at the same time. And you know how exhausting that is. And like to know that, hey, you have to keep going. They always tell you, got to keep going, you got to keep going. Like I'm only human. I get tired. And knowing that that's still, whatever I'm doing is still not enough.
Yeah, I think interfacing with the McKinney-Vento liaisons at the schools is so important because they have a ton of resources that they can provide. I mean, you're mentioning that they would come pick you up in Montrose on the bus to take you to Channelview High School. That's
Yes.
huge.
I was homeless. Like there was days where I was sleeping out in front of Grace Place. And but Grace Place, you can do a lot with Grace Place, even just the building. Like I was homeless. Where am I gonna send my mail? Where was, that till this day I still send my mail there. Like is and so every time I would go sleep wherever I would go sleep, and when 6 o'clock in the morning came and the car came to get me, I would just walk to Grace Place and they'll pick me up and drop me off. And if it wasn't for that, even during COVID, even when if it was like, what is it called, virtual, even when it was virtual, I wasn't able to obtain, my stuff was getting stolen. Like, so when McKinney Vento was that factor, they were giving me backpack buddy, like like clothes, food, things like that, and how much that helped. Like, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have graduated.
It's such a big accomplishment that you graduated. I
Yes.
want to say that, like, that you graduate high school, that you, yeah.
Okay, so how can the people listening tonight be part of the solution? I feel like that you start reaching out to some of the organizations that are funded under YHDP. We also have a website on the Coalition for the Homeless website page. So you will see most of the organizations there. If you know anyone, any homeless youth, start sending them over so they can start getting assessed so we can start helping them right away.
I would say a strong thing is be an advocate. It's hard for a youth alone to be brave enough to ask for help. So if you know somebody who is confiding in you, to be like, "Hey, I need help." Have that conversation and be like, "Hey, I know you're scared. I know that this is rough, but I know some people who can help." So that is a big thing too, being that voice for them so that later on in life they will be able to carry themselves out of that. Because not to say that it's embarrassing, but it takes a toll on people, their image and how they feel about themselves when being homeless or needing help. And with this generation, it's really hard to ask for that.
I think a little can go a long way. Just asking them how their day was or being nice. Like it's some people they have bad days, and I feel like like you can hold so much in, and then it's like one little thing it can just tip over. So just asking somebody how their day was, I feel.
I think just we're done. Be providing grace to youth and young adults experiencing homelessness and knowing, I mean, like Tiana said, you made the first step because you're here listening to us. So reaching out to the organizations, reaching out to the YAB, talking to these young people who are advocates in the community.
Awesome, awesome. Can you give all of our panelists, Courtney and our YAB, our OG YAB, a hand? I hope you guys listen. One of the phrases that is highlighted throughout YCP is nothing about us without us. And to take away from this work, you can't really reduce youth and young adult homelessness without listening to youth and young adults. So I charge you to listen to the youth and young adults in your programs. Guess what? They're looking for employment. Hire them too. Not just listen, but hire them so they can impact change in your organizations. We're so grateful. Now we're going to open it up for questions from you guys. I'm going to help participate to answer anything that they may not be able to answer, but feel free to ask any questions that your heart has just touched your heart while learning about youth and young adult homelessness. Yes.
All right, so we'll take questions from folks here in the audience, and Frida's going to come around with the microphone. Please keep your questions concise, please. And we will also take questions from people watching at home on Zoom. So feel free to use that Q&A feature to ask questions if you're joining us virtually.
Oh, first, just two comments or questions. One, first of all, you were fantastic. you get your bachelor's degree, come see me at the county. But we're absolutely. I've been in a lot of panels, and this was great. But number one, looking at goals for this year, when we were planning YHDP, one of the things we talked about as we looked at other sites was a separate coordinated access and vulnerability scale for youth instead of using one vulnerability scale across the entire continuum. Where are we with that? Is that a goal for this coming year?
Well, we have a work group specifically right now working on the coordinated access system to prioritize youth differently. And I know also that Quana's team, they do that. So it's not the same vulnerability index that filters for the chronic adults.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very
Welcome.
encouraging.
And I think really quick, one thing I really value is that, at Grace Place, we can assess youth. So if a young adult comes to Grace Place and they just lost their housing that day, we can assess them for YHDP. I can email Quana and say, hey, I just assessed this youth. And, I think they'd be a great fit for a diversion program, or hey, I think they would really value from this. And the fact that they kind of listen to the expertise of the person that did the assessment, I really value that, because I don't just ask the questions on the thing. We're like having a conversation and then really answering the questions from there.
Um, and I'm loud, so I don't know. Hopefully, my online people can hear me. But yes, that is something we're continuing to evaluate and address. Thank you, Joel, for bringing that up. But that is something that we're looking at, and that is the whole purpose of when we're finalizing the demonstration period, to see if we need to ask the questions differently, if we do need another prioritization question, or however you want to say it, another set of questions, or is it how we're asking and how we're engaging the youth so we can get to our most vulnerable youth and young adults. So that is something we're still working on. So thank you for asking that.
Thank you. Just real quick, the second question, the 16, 17-year-old piece is very dear to me, and I'm glad to hear that, because truly the only intervention in our community right now in our state is Child Protective Services, and we know that's not the desired intervention. And I run the public emergency shelter in the county, and we get so many 16, 17-year-olds that need shelter, but we can't get a parent or a guardian to sign the dotted line, so we can't do it. The county won't let us, but no one can, because if they get hurt, they need medical attention. What happens after 30 days? There's too much liability. So I'm curious, have we thought about maybe putting a work group together to look at the next legislative session, saying, what can we do to change this? There are states that do have other provisions for 16, 17-year-olds besides CPS, or that addresses some of those liability issues if someone wants to take someone in, or a shelter. So is there something legislative maybe we can look at for the next session to really start advocating for this?
Yes, I love that. I think I've been talking to Quana a lot about starting a work group that just focuses on the 16, 17 question. So I think ultimately, what sign you up? I think you're like at the top of the list of people to call before you even asked. The fact, yeah, I think our state, there's just, yeah, we definitely, it would require state, I think, legislative intervention. So yeah.
Courtney said it. We want to do an adjacent systems work group. So if you're interested in that, talk to me. But definitely that is something, that's a huge barrier that we're trying to tackle, is that minors, period. But definitely that 16 and 17 age range. Excellent question. Any more questions?
Well, mine is mostly a statement. I'm Dr. Kathy Tatum with Collaborating Voices. I was a homeless teen. Most people didn't know, straight A's. My mom had mental health, and she shot me several times in and out of CPS. So I absolutely understand what you guys are doing. I want to make a statement, two statements, as a provider here in the community. You guys kind of said it, like when you're going to college, a lot of people are not understanding that. A lot of people go to HCC, go to Long Star. I don't know if anybody noticed, there is no affordable housing around these schools. So a lot of times when people are talking about human trafficking, they're talking about this and that, but they're not talking about how many teens that I have to try to find housing for because everybody say, oh, don't you get a free education at these local actual, things. But across the United States, people really need to advocate that we need more people going to four-year colleges instead of going to the actual local ones because there's no housing, okay? Number two, I want to thank Grace Place because they are open. They're open for anybody to come in. As a person that's a nonprofit, there's so many barriers between ourselves. And when I say Grace Place, I've donated, I've came by, it's an open door for us too. And I really like to go to places that I don't want to hear that I can't even, sorry, you're not a community advocate. Oh, I don't know you. You guys open a door for other advocates and other nonprofits. So I want to say thank you to Grace Place for not just opening up for the youth, but other people to welcomely donate to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tatum.
Any more questions from the audience? Or Catherine, do we have one from our digital viewers?
And it's really a pleasure to be here. You young ladies are awesome. You give me a lot of courage and motivation to do some things. But the young lady in the pink, in the fuchsia, you spoke about mental health and you said it was the Open Gate Ministries.
Yes. For more of for what I experienced, they offer physical health. Like they have doctors. Every Sunday you're able to go and see the doctors for free, and they send you referrals to other places. They help working with like doctors, or not doctors but clinics in the area, such as like there's a Legacy and like a lot of other like Grace Place sponsors with them, that they're able to offer. Like I know like finances is an issue, and I'm going through that right now as far as like insurance. Like, what am I supposed to do about healthcare? And those are the places that will help you get those referrals to be like, hey, if you get a referral, we can help you for free.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, mental health care is such a big gap and a big challenge. One thing we really want to start doing is opening our internship opportunities to clinical level master students who can provide free mental health counseling at Grace Place. So that's kind of like something that like we're working on. I think that's something a lot of agencies can do. Interns can help you get that sort of program going.
I was also going to say, the Mantra Center also helps with mental health services as well. We also have counselors there too that can help.
I would like to say that, like, again, resources are my thing. Um, I promise you, if you tell me you need something, I'm gonna be like, oh, go here. Like, I promise you that. Um, one of the ladies back there spoke about, resorting to, like the sex trafficking piece and stuff like that as far as stability, along with the mental health piece. I have been in I have been in a I guess, a organization where they offer all those benefactors to help that. Like, I'm a product of that. So, to know that there is something that will help you that is like cost free, having that advocacy piece, like that's a big thing for me to be like, hey, like we're able to house you, we're able to, they have free counseling, they have like everything you could possibly need. Now I know there's a lot of regulations in place, but they will make it happen for you.
We've got two questions from folks watching online at home. And again, y'all watching at home, feel free to use that Q&A function here to ask your questions. So SP asks, I wish there was a resource list at grocery stores for homeless youth. Our store managers and staff could be better informed about unhoused youth. And then anonymous attendee says, kudos to this group for sharing and speaking up for youth homelessness. What suggestions do you have to make the homeless response system more responsive and supportive to the needs of young people?
That's a really great question. Well, to the first person, yeah, we do need to start having that inside in grocery stores, and it's crazy because I still work at a grocery store. I work at HEB part time, and so sometimes some of those positions at HEB, it's not 12.50 an hour. You not get barely paid for stuff. So yeah, we need to probably start speaking and going to grocery stores because I know especially the one that I work at in the Montrose area, my store manager is always looking forward to helping out partners or just helping out people in general. So yeah, that's a great idea. I'm definitely gonna talk to my store manager about that.
One big, like Shani had talked about, like even the housing guide. Um, it's so easy to spread, you know, like you said, the grocery store. It's so easy to spread, like I would say awareness. Like, like for me, I was like telling them, I was like, hey, I like riding scooters for fun. That's my thing. So like, let's say if we take those brochures or the pamphlets and we put them on bus stops, or we, take them into like little, what I would do? There's like, I use public transportation. I would I would have little flyers or whatever I was doing, and they have little things you could put them in. Imagine how many people that would help if those people saw it. Like it's so easy. It's just that we have to be more, motivated to get that out there.
And to the second question, like how can the response system, I think like creative and youth driven solutions are really going to be like the best way to address, because I've said it a lot during this panel, but our current system is just so focused on chronic adult homelessness that I think even when working with young people, you just have to be really creative and you have to maximize what the young person already has available to them and kind of remind them of that. So I think just being really creative and making sure all of the solutions you provide are youth driven.
Hello, I'm Adriana Wilson with the Greater Houston Opportunity Youth Collaborative. First off, I want to just thank you all for sharing your stories with us and allowing us to learn from your experiences. It's very helpful in being able to empower you to move forward. My question kind of goes along with some of the conversation that we've been having. So you did mention that when you didn't know where to go or what the resources were, that like the school was like one trusted source that you were like accessing. Are there any other trusted sources like that that young adults are seeing as like a starting point, or kind of like what's that starting point when you don't know where to start?
I think we are working on that. Like again, the housing guide is a big piece, and that is our main focus on how we are able to let that when the people see this housing guide, what what is going through their head, or how are they going to be motivated to go to these resources. So that's one thing that we are working on in progress. And like I said, networking. So like Grace Place was one of my second options. So once I found out about Grace Place, I promise you, you would hear things from, because there's people coming from everywhere, and so going into in a place where there's an abundance of people, you hear word of mouth. Again, you hear like, hey, there's a resource down the street, there's a resource down here. So you really get to, once you start going to one place, you start to hear other places around them, like all the people that they network with, all the people that they, have connections with.
Well, coming from a person who didn't know what her resources were, it was it was kind of different and difficult. My what I would use is like couch surfing, people to lean on, or you it's really hard because I didn't have nothing or anybody. So I didn't know what any of the resources was, hotel vouchers, housing. I didn't know I could get housing. So it was, or rental assistance. So it was different, like going out and like you're just on the street. And like I didn't go to shelters because I don't trust shelters. And shelters, they always have bad reviews. Like I haven't seen a shelter that had a good review. So like yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing as Ashani. I didn't have anything, so basically I got myself out of homelessness. I was working 2, 3 jobs just to make sure I can, you know,
But word of
suffice.
mouth too. So
Yeah,
sorry.
but word of mouth. I found out about Grace Place through a friend. So I went to Grace Place one time, and after that, I was on a diversion list waiting, but that was like for like the adults and stuff. But yeah, I didn't have anything, so I had to just lean on friends and stuff like that just so I can get by.
One good resource that I think is um very good and very important. It's called the Houston Blue Book, and I have a mission. I want to be able to work with them to update the resources that they have, but it's literally a book that has nothing but resources for everything you could possibly imagine. So imagine if all schools had that. I know Grace Place has them, Open Gate has them, like the places I go to has them. So imagine if those were accessible, just like newspapers, like how that would be able to help people. That's a really good. It's a good book that has all of that.
Yeah, and it's just like a short story about how important word of mouth is. Um, there was a young man that came to Grace Place and he had just kind of like been kicked out. And he like just got on the bus and came to Houston, and then he like didn't know what to do. He was like on the train, kind of asking people on the train for money and help. And two of the youth who were on their way to Grace Place were on that train. And they were like, "How old are you?" And he was like, 22. And they were like, "No, just come with us because we're going to take. And so it's like word of mouth is so important for all of our programs. The very young people we serve are the very people helping their friends and their loved ones get access to services too.
Thank you, guys. So we're going to take one more question just due to time, and we'll wrap it up and follow it up. Okay, who has a question? Okay, awesome.
Hi, my name is Sophia Collins, and I'm the founder of Gifts. Be real short. I'm from Chicago, and I'm an '80s baby. So back in that time, we had what they called is "Say No to Drugs" Dare, and we had the dog that'll come up. What I'm hearing, or I'm bringing this up to the plant panel, or asking the panel, is that I'm hearing that everybody is going to find the resource, or people are talking about it. Is it ever a possibility that you could come to the schools and make yourself be known there as a face, or even for the young people to be there to say, hey, I've been through it, even if it's just a 5 minute, 30 minute coming to the auditorium and talking? It may not be the child, that particular child, but they have a friend, because most people are likely to talk to a friend than an adult.
Yeah, our youth programs manager, Kenny, was also on the YAB, and one of his goals for this school year is to make a presence at like Lamar, which is a high school in the neighborhood. Is that kind of what you mean? Just being there, a person, yeah. Yeah, I know that's definitely a goal for us, and I'm sure all the YHDP programs to have like a person that can be there in the school. It's also like the connections that we make with organizations whose mission is to be in the schools. Making sure that we have a really close relationship with them, just because if we can't be there yet, they can provide information to the young person. But we do have a goal of Kenny having a presence in the local high schools.
And just quickly to piggyback off that, the Coalition for the Homeless is working more so on in-reach, not just with YHCP, to go into the schools in those places where unhoused or at risk of being unhoused or presenting. So that is a goal. We've been working with HISD and I know Aldine to have services where we have people from agencies going in and providing in-reach services so they can connect with our team.
I know like HISD has a lot going on right now. So it's we were like this close to like being in there, and then the TEA took over and they have the new superintendent, and he kind of got rid of the entire homeless department, and so they've got a lot going. It's been kind of difficult to get in there. Thank y'all. Oh, sorry, here comes Kelly. No, I know. I've been so excited to meet you.
Well, I'm very excited to meet you. So that worked out really well. First of all, I just want everybody to take a minute, just be present in this moment, and just feel the glory of these young, wonderful women and what they're doing in this world, and just be grateful that we get to have that. Yeah. So I am Kelly Young. I'm the president and CEO for the Coalition for the Homeless, a whole whopping 32 days. So yes. But I will tell you that um, I laugh because I have a lovely like speech thing that I'm supposed to read. But what you did is actually made me take a bunch of notes because I learned a bunch of stuff, and it's upside down, and I can't always read my own writing. So I just wanted to actually tell you what I learned from you all today, because that's very important, correct? So one thing is that the systems are either for children or for adults, and it doesn't fit for you. And that the benefit of a demonstration is we get to learn, and we actually get to learn from the people who actually know. You don't get to do that very often in programming. Most of the time you get to be the expert and pretend that you know. And remember when you were 16, I was barely sober when I was 16. So yeah, I'm not sure it was the best place to learn from as an adult. That the language is still too much focused on program language and not people language, which is important. I've also learned, and I love this, that the strength that it must take to break generational curses without any resourcing, that's kind of intense. Like I'm going to sit on that one for a while. I really appreciated that. That what translated for you was the need for the safe space, and that the providers had to understand how you were going to show up for that safe space and not to dictate what that space was going to be for you all. I also love the tiny job. Thank you for that. I'm going to use that moving forward. I would like a tiny job to go with my tiny house. The other two things that I learned is that I'm not the expert. So thank you for reminding me of that. And that it takes a long time to actually break the assumptions and the biases that you have. And your willingness to have those hard conversations and speak up only teaches me to do my work better, which only allows for the next group to go through less trauma, less difficulty, less work to just live. And I greatly appreciate that. So now I'm going to switch it over to my other side. I wanted to mention just a couple things, and that is that government agencies typically don't always get it right. And you get an advantage when you get to work on a demonstration project because you get to try some stuff. That does not mean then the funding will stay open. Eventually, if you do really well in a demonstration project, they go, that's great. And then they take it and then they shove it back down into those tiny little tubes of this is how we've done it before and you have to do that this way. So outside funding for these kinds of projects are extremely important to create the flexibility that's necessary to actually engage in what is important to these women. So I want to thank our outside sponsors, the Powell Foundation, the Elkins Foundation, Vivian L. Smith Foundation, Cadence Bank Foundation for helping to support this project. I want you to think about ways that you could support through funding, through volunteer, through just showing up, being available. Those are all things that are available to all of us all the time. It's not that much. Doesn't make that big a deal in our lives. It makes a huge difference in somebody's life. If you can imagine being 15, 16, walking around the streets going, okay, I'm gonna figure it out. I mean, because I don't know that I have any other choice. This is what I will do. So I do want to thank them, and I hope that those that are listening online, those that are here, that you will find some action that you will take. One of the things that we do have for you all is this lovely code that you get to, do the thing on it. And the reason why we have this is we have a teach back, talk back section to this now, where we really want to get your feedback about what you got out of it and what you're going to take with you and share with someone else. If you didn't learn anything today, word of mouth is the only way that people find things. So your willingness to talk back and take back what we did here gives us an opportunity to share it in a new and different way. So it's on your table, so make sure that you take a picture of that. And then lastly, I want to thank all of the providers who've gone through a very, very difficult year. Because demonstration projects are not fun, they're work. And if you didn't show up and say what you really thought and challenge some of the things that happened and celebrated some of the other things, we wouldn't be as far as long as we are. And we have to keep moving it forward. We don't want to just be another demonstration project that did the minimal amount it could with the least amount of outcome, because that would be disappointing 3 incredibly amazing human beings. And I just don't think you want to do that to them in the long run. So I know that Grace's Place got a lot of kudos, and I could tell she felt very uncomfortable with that. Some of that's because you get to be the moderator, but the other thing is that when you create space for people that really feels available to them, you should get kudos for that. I want to thank Bread of Life because they do the same thing. I don't know all of the rest of the providers. I will get to know all of you, but what I do know is that if the youth are using you, it's because you allowed for them to be who they are, get what they need, and move forward the way that made the most sense to them. So I want to thank all of you for all your hard work. So I think I told you all the things I learned. Thank you very much. And that is it for us this evening. Thank you so much for coming out. And one last round of applause for our wonderful, wonderful panel.